Welcome to the Baseball Insiders, where my heart hurts as much as Gerrit Cole's elbow does. I'm Adam Weinrib, joined as always by Fansided's MLB insider, Robert Murray. I'm back from spring training last weekend. I got sunburn on exclusively my nose, but otherwise, ready to rock. Grapefruit League play, great. Do it. If you haven't, you should. We've got to talk about Cole and the Yankees as per usual. Can't do a Monday show without another Yankees injury, so we'll go through the potential aftermath. Plus, Vlad Jr. opens up on his contract demands and supposedly how close the Blue Jays came. He also gets struck out by Jackson Jobe, who's done trying to dot a gnat's ass. Just really wanted to say that. And first and foremost, though, Dave Roberts staying where he should be. Here to break it down, answer your questions, and empty that notebook is Fansided's MLB insider Robert Murray on NFL Free Agency Frenzy Day. A day on which X.com, I guess that's what we're calling it now, has been down for like 7 hours. So good stuff. Thank you for joining us. If you're joining us, this is one of the very few places where news is happening right now because all the websites are bad.
No, exactly. It's good to be like on an actual functional website, which is always a good thing. So good to be here with you, Adam, today. We got lots of stuff going on, baseball related. Obviously, NFL free agency is going on. So I mean, Twitter, while it's working, it's not much today. It's been pretty crazy. Packers just making a big move. So, I mean, lots of stuff going on, but we got lots of things to talk about baseball related today. Got some insight on some of the stuff we got on the rundown today, but good to be here with you. Adam, how we doing?
We're doing good, and we appreciate everybody joining us. And we, of course, appreciate Robert opening that notebook and helping us out today and answering your questions. If you want to ask questions between shows, recommend you join us in the Discord, either at the Rumor Mill tier or the All-Star tier. All-Stars get priority responses in this here chat. Rumor Mill, that's where the private Q&A with Robert is every Thursday at 3 o'clock Eastern time. And most days, that's going to be a day when we don't do a podcast, unlike last week when we moved things around. So a prime opportunity there to ask us questions between shows. We also recommend you subscribe to the Moonshot. That's our weekly baseball email newsletter where the Fansided MLB team, including Robert Murray, break down all the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, and behind-the-scenes info. You can also find that and plenty more writing on the Baseball Insiders feed on fansided.com. That's fansided.com/baseball-insiders for Robert's content, my content, the best of baseball and pop culture crossovers from the Fansided MLB staff writers. Got a lot of fun stuff locked and loaded for opening day. So come join us on fansided.com as well between shows. Anyhow, let's start with the news of the day because just about a half hour before we went live, the Dave Roberts Dodger stuff came to a head and some of the contract details are out there now. I think we all expected a deal would get done between Roberts and the Dodgers, and almost probably even more than a fait accompli than the Aaron Boone Yankees contract extension that we all knew was coming. That's what happens when you win the World Series and manage an historic juggernaut. People tend to want you to stick around. What we seem to know now, Joel Sherman and John Heyman reporting, it's $32.4 million for 4 years, so 8.1 annual. That'll cross Craig Counsell's number annually by that 0.1, that pesky little 0.1, the classic Scott Boras strategy of inching past the previous record, although not year records. We're not getting a 5-year deal here. It's just 4 more. But anything else you can tell us about how this came together? And obviously, I assume all parties are very happy with where they were able to settle.
Yeah, all parties are very happy with where they were able to settle here. 4 years for $32.4 million specifically makes him an obviously very well compensated manager here. And there was always a deal is always going to get done. But the thing with this is it just took longer than I think either side would really have preferred. And getting above the council number, obviously, like that was important. But I think the years were the real struggle here for both sides. And they were able to settle on a 4-year contract, gets a deal done to retain Dave Roberts in LA. Deal ended up getting done today, I believe. It's going to be ended up announced in the next day or so. But it was always going to get done. Just the timing of it, I think having you had the A's extend Mark Kotsay first, and then you had the Yankees extend Aaron Boone first. And it took a decent amount longer for the Dodgers to get this done with Dave Roberts, but it ultimately ended up getting done. But I think both sides would have really preferred this deal to get done earlier this spring or even before spring training, but at least they got it done before the Dodgers go overseas.
Yeah, and heading for an all-important early season opening series with the Cubs Easy to get lost in the shuffle there and sort of forget that, oh my gosh, the regular season is beginning even sooner than most anticipated for the Cubbies and Dodgers. They are prepared. They are giving Matt Sauer that heartwarming talk saying you made the roster. And whether it took this long, longer than it should have, or what have you, at least Dave Roberts finally has that financial security and all parties can move on. Hey, here's the team that doesn't have their finances in order and can't move on. Gerrit Cole, who left last year's spring training with an elbow issue, sought a second opinion from Neil Elitrosh, somehow avoided surgery, came back in June, and then did pitch through the regular season and World Series. So you can't say should have gotten the surgery last year. They probably don't go to the World Series without him, and pennants fly forever. Of course, when they got there, his brain lock led to them losing Game 5 of the World Series and the World Series ending. But hey, I'm not here to rehash the past. Either way, the second straight year where Cole is going for examinations on that elbow in spring training. And this time around, Jim Bowden says Tommy John has been recommended and he's looking for a second opinion. All the quotes from Cole and Cashman indicate, hey, gloom and doom, it's legitimate. This is probably going to be what eventually works its course. Safe to assume they do not have Gerrit Cole this season. And hey, maybe they even still wish they would have traded Marcus Stroman and his money after all that, but they do have him. They've got Will Warren. They prepared for losing rotation depth. That said, it's impossible to prepare for losing an ace in Cole and Heel for 3.5, 4 months or whatever. You know, teams don't just withstand that stuff. Teams don't pick up and go get Sandy Alcantara tomorrow because they lost Gerrit Cole. It's one of those things that you kind of look at and go, oh, that sucks for the season as a whole. It'd be pretty hard to figure that one out. So there have been a few reports circulating about aces like Alcantara they have their eyes on. We know Cease and King are unavailable. Feels safe to assume they're going internal for now. Maybe they reevaluate at the deadline, but I wouldn't expect a big, ooh, Cole's down. What do they do now? I mean, the answer is they get sad. Like, there's really nothing to be done.
Yeah, the Yankees, they obviously have internal depth, but there's no replacing Gerrit Cole. He is, when he's healthy, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball, if not the best pitcher in baseball. There is a reason why the Yankees signed him to that mammoth contract, and there's a reason why, I mean, both sides ended up agreeing to come back, or agreeing for Cole to come back this year and for the next few years. So this injury, I mean, is nothing short of devastating. If it indeed proves like as serious as both sides end up thinking it is. And that being said, I cannot confirm on my end that Tommy John has been recommended for Cole. But that being said, I know he's visiting Neil Elitrosh today, and they're going to figure out exactly what is going on there. But going into that, there is not much optimism. It's alarming. It's kind of a doomsday scenario, if we're being real honest here for the Yankees. And as far as like possibly looking externally for options here, like Sandy Alcantara, he's not going to be traded before opening day. The Padres have made it clear for a while now that they preferred keeping the roster intact going into opening day. So that means Dylan Cease or Michael King are not going to be moved. One thing I would watch for is some of these NRI guys that are going to be making decisions on whether or not to stay into the contract or opt out of the deal in the next week or so. I think that could be something that the Yankees could really explore, even maybe a minor trade. So we'll see. There's going to be options for the Yankees, but trying to retain or trying to end up upgrading or trying to address that rotation is going to be borderline impossible. Like replacing a guy like Cole is borderline impossible. It's the Yankees are in a real tough spot right now between him, Stanton, Heel. I mean, all these guys that are missing time. This is about as bad of a spring training as they could ask for.
No, I think it's going awesome. Counterpoint. I mean, the one other thing that we have heard, and you're talking about picking up NRI guys and looking at maybe minor trades, it all makes sense. You've lost your depth buffer, so you need to maybe rebuild some of that depth. There's also the question of offense, because they went into this offseason knowing that Giancarlo Stanton had 2 elbow issues. That was not a secret to them. He battled through it last year and did it admirably. And shout out to him if he sacrificed his elbows. If this is the end and we don't see him for a while or ever, then he goes out a hero. Objectively, you can't be mad at Giancarlo Stanton. That said, the Yankees knew Stanton was battling and knew he was ailing and went out and entered spring training without a defined third baseman, meaning they were already down 1 bat in the lineup. knowing they were about to be down 2 when Stanton inevitably showed up hurt. So there's this rumor that Cashman is sort of circling a right-handed bat. Joel Sherman keeps hinting at it. You've heard multiple. Aaron Boone hinted at it on the broadcast last week. You wonder, okay, are they going to bring in it's not going to be a game changer, you'd have to think, but some kind of professional hitter to join this bench. I'm curious if you've heard anything about how you ensure against that Stanton absence with just like an adult in the room.
No, exactly. And before I address that, I'll address 2 things here in the comments. Zach G, I don't know what Mike Rodriguez report you're referencing.
I can speak to that one. It was something about how Judge wanted them to pursue Sandy Alcantara, and it sort of just seemed like conjecture.
Got it. Okay. I don't know anything about that. And Justin, you ask on almost every show if Adam is okay. That is annoying as hell. And if you do that again, we will block you for the stream. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Going back to your point here, Adam, like it's going to be like if the Yankees look externally for some help for offense, I mean, there could be options again, like the NRI side. Well, exactly. Like if guys end up opting out of their contracts there. We know Adam Duvall is seeking $3 million. I don't know if the Yankees would necessarily want to do that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he could be one option. So they can explore a lot of different possibilities here, but they should have been more aggressive this offseason, even before this point, in addressing the roster. And I know they're saying that they're broke, or John Heyman said that they're broke at this point. They're the New York Yankees. They can't be broke. They lost Juan Soto. They obviously made him just a mammoth offer this offseason. And like to say that they're crying poor at this point is really just, it's honestly a punch in the face to Yankees fans. And they should have been on Alex Bregman. They should have been on a bunch of these other guys. Instead, they really weren't. And they're paying the price for it now.
I love this because when you talk to the Red Sox, like, hey, be the Red Sox, spend money. They did. They spent on Alex Bregman. They went out and got Garrett Crochet. They signed Walker Buehler. Maybe the Yankees will listen to you as well, and we can see that rivalry reignited. But for now, Gerrit Cole going down about as tough to swallow as it gets. They'll be interesting. The AL is open, but the AL is open in part because of how incompetent the Yankees were in finishing their offseason and staying healthy. So speaking of a team that maybe is happy to see an AL East cohort go down early, we heard from Vlad Jr. at Blue Jays camp at the end of last week. And what we heard claimed that both the Blue Jays offer and his team's counter were below $600 million. So sort of hinted that, he's obviously inspired by the Juan Soto deal, as we know, right? We know that he's looking at what Juan Soto got, that $800 million total, and saying, woof, this is going to be incredible, right? Got to get to free agency and see what we can get. But it did not mean that he was looking at the $800 million total. Seemed to indicate that both of the numbers that were being thrown around both fell below 600 mil. But he is looking for 14 years of security like Soto, and he is going to hit free agency extremely young. So it's not surprising that that's the goal. I'm wondering, do you think he will eventually get to 14 and maybe below, but close to that $600 million number?
I think when it's all said and done here for Vlad Jr., his contract ends up looking under 14 years, and he ends up getting a contract under 600 million as well. I would look for him. It's going to be shorter years, but I think the $500 million number for Vlad Jr. is going to be very real. I think that's going to end up being something that is going to be heavily talked about when he eventually becomes a free agent. But that being said, as far as Vlad Jr. goes, his market is going to be very lucrative. I think that is not it's not a hot take at all here. He's going to be 26 years old when he becomes a free agent. He's going to end up having teams like, you would think, the Blue Jays, the Mets, the Red Sox, a bunch of other teams involved in this market. And it's going to end up being a bidding war. It's going to be extensive. It's going to be lucrative. But I just don't see any team giving a first baseman at this point 14 years. I think that's going to be just too unrealistic. Maybe they do that if they want to spread out the money. Maybe that's the only way that I could ever see that happening. But I think the contract is going to start with a 5, but I don't think it reaches 6.
I would intend to agree with you. But I think, hey, no shame in 500, no shame in a contract that starts with a 5. And from there, it maybe trickles down to Kyle Tucker. It's going to be a lucrative offseason, but it's helpful to know the kinds of things that Vlad is eyeing before we get there. You cannot count out the Blue Jays, but he has made his demands perfectly clear. We'll see who reaches close to that level. And Vlad might need to work on some other stuff while he's working on getting that new contract, considering Jackson Jobe of the Detroit Tigers put him to sleep this past weekend. I just want to highlight Jobe, who got Vladdy on a 3-pitch blowaway strikeout on Saturday. They talked to Jobe after the game, and he said he is, as I said gleefully earlier in the show, happy to say it again, done trying to dot a gnat's ass. Just want to go with that here it is, hit it mentality. And he showed Vladdy his stuff, and he sent Vladdy back to the showers almost instantaneously. Don't you wish every pitcher kind of had that mentality? It's starting to feel again like we might be approaching a generation of guys who are just going to be here it is, hit it, especially because they know, hey, this arm might have an expiration date before. If I'm going max effort, it's more likely than ever that I'm eventually going to have to go under the knife. So why not just show off my best stuff all the time instead of trying to paint corners at 92? We know there's danger for any young pitcher today, but I loved what I heard from Jobe, and I also love what I'm seeing from him.
Oh, I love what I'm seeing from Jobe too, and I think the Tigers, they're just incredibly optimistic here in what they're seeing, and he looks like he's going to end up being a future star. When they drafted him, that was exactly what they were envisioning there. And this spring, he's flashed. I mean, obviously, he pitched very minimally last year in the postseason, or just in the late regular season as well. But he flashed, and that organization is incredibly optimistic about what's to come there. And as far as what that outlook looks like for Detroit, they obviously have Skubal, they have Jobe, they've signed some veterans this offseason. I know they were very, very they were looking at some other options this offseason. They were aggressive in trying to get guys on 1-year deals, and don't know if I'm necessarily at liberty to say who they are, but I know of 2 guys who got lucrative deals this offseason that the Tigers were on. But upgrading the rotation was something that was incredibly important to them. But Jobe is going to be a guy who this year and long-term is going to be a foundational piece for them. And the early signs from this spring show that the Tigers were absolutely correct in betting on that.
Thank you, everyone, for showing up in the comments as well. We will get to some of your questions in a bit. Laser Show asking over-under on Vlad to Boston. Unfortunately, you can't go over or under a person going to a city, so can't answer that question unless you're asking over-under 2.5 Vlad's going to Boston, in which case I'll say under, maximum of 1. But either way, I do think the Boston Red Sox will be involved on a singular Vladimir Guerrero Jr. $500 million, pretty rich, especially given the deals they've given out in recent years. They even went short-term on Bregman to stay comfortable there. Right? They could have gotten that deal done in January by saying we'll go 6 years, 190 on Bregman. But instead, they front load it. Smart, looks good. He appears to love being there, so they can always bring him back if they want to. They offer a fat deal to Juan Soto, but Juan Soto gives you a lot more flexibility. Although weirdly, defensively, I mean, Vladdy and Soto, that's kind of a tough one for one. Juan Soto, not exactly the most deserving Gold Glove finalist of all time. Do you see Boston as at least getting into the conversation and passing that number that starts with a 5 on Vlad Jr.?
I think it's too early to say necessarily what level of money they'll go into, but I absolutely expect the Red Sox to be a big player for Vlad Jr. And we've seen Bob Nightingale on it. We've seen John Heyman on it. We've seen a bunch of these guys on it. And I would expect the Red Sox to be involved in that. But as I said, there's going to be other teams that are going to be involved in this as well. You would think the Mets would be involved, especially if Pete Alonso ends up opting out. The Blue Jays are going to try to re-sign him. There's going to be other teams obviously involved in this, but I do expect the Red Sox to go out and try to get him. They obviously have money to spend. Ownership is especially this offseason, they indicated more of a willingness to go out and spend. What exactly that would mean for a guy like Tristan Casas remains to be seen. But I think it's fair to say that Vlad Jr. is going to be a player of interest for the Red Sox next winter. But between now and then, there's a lot of time. But man, I think that fit makes a lot of sense for both sides.
I would agree, and I appreciate the question, of course. Could be the Mets, could be the Jays. Red Sox are definitely going to be a player here. Thank you, everyone, for asking the questions. Thank you to no one for the weird comments that got kind of off base. People started threatening each other. So don't do that on the Baseball Insiders. If I haven't snapped with the Gerrit Cole and Stan injuries, then you shouldn't either. That's kind of my deal. Anything in that notebook, Robert? We've talked a lot in recent weeks about the big names that are still unsigned. A week has gone by. Not a name off the board. Lance Lynn, future closer, Kyle Gibson, JD Martinez, David Robertson, Alex Verdugo. I mean, plenty of lesser relievers too. I don't know what we're looking at here, but anything in the notebook as we're 2.5 weeks away from opening day. Teams are going to Tokyo. Teams are going north. Like, we got to figure this thing out.
No, we definitely got to figure this thing out. And honestly, like I'll be honest, I've been asking people all weekend, like, what exactly is going on. I have not heard much optimism that anything has gotten closer. So, I mean, obviously things can change with one phone call, but the remaining free agents, I have not heard anything to suggest that anything is close, but I could be missing something. But as of this point, that is that's something along the lines of what I'm hearing. I'll go to Drew here. Is Arise going to get extended by opening day? I don't know if he's going to. But I know the Padres are pretty dead set on entering opening day with the current roster as is. I know I've mentioned that earlier on the show, but there is a lot of speculation this offseason. We talked about it throughout the offseason here about possibly them moving on from Dylan Cease or Michael King. But all indications are that they want to hold on to those guys come opening day and going throughout the season here. So we'll see exactly what ends up happening come the trade deadline. I don't think an Arise extension is impossible, but I also can't say I've heard anything about that. So we'll see, but that is what I can tell you there on the Padres. Let's see, what else do I got here? Is Pham okay? I believe he is okay. I have not heard anything suggest that it's serious. Let's see. Are the Yankees in on Cease again? I don't expect him to get traded.
No.
Let's see if there's anything else in here that we can end up hitting on here, Adam.
You hit the best ones, I believe.
You think they'd get desperate enough to revisit Arenado? No.
And I'm going to give an addendum to that one that I don't even think they visited it in the first place. Like, technically impossible to answer, just like over under how many Vlad Juniors go to Boston. Like, revisit Jack Curry, put the kibosh on that pretty quick. I don't know if the Yankees are watching Arenado. I do know I was at Yankees Cardinals yesterday. So forgive my sunburned nose. And, yeah, weirdly, like, not all that big hubbub when Arenado traveled to the Yankees camp like a week and a half ago. Whoa, why is he making the bus trip? Didn't feel the same energy in the ballpark yesterday at all. Just kind of felt like a spring training game. Everybody going about their business. Oswaldo Cabrera and Oswald Peraza both played for the Yankees. Arenado picked it at third for the Cardinals, and everybody just, did their work, went home. There was not this buzz in the stadium like people heckling from above the visitors' dugout like, "Oh, Nolan, take the bus home with us," or it just kind of felt like that has maybe disappeared.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like I would be absolutely stunned if they ended up trading for Arenado like that. It's never been a real consideration all offseason. They were never really involved in that. I just do not expect that to change, despite him taking that long 3 to 4 hour bus ride, according to various reports on the length of that bus ride.
We don't know. Hey, we can't be sure how long the bus ride was.
No, but I'd be really surprised by that, especially with the Yankees, according to John Heyman, saying that they're broke. So I would not get your hopes up there for anything happening there. But I think the next week or so, or maybe next week or two, we're going to see teams be really aggressive here with guys that opt out of their contracts, or even some minor trades as teams are ironing out the rest of the rosters for opening day.
Yep. And with that in mind, the Yankees being somewhat broke, JD Martinez if Stanton is done for the season, is JD Martinez a possibility? I don't understand why the Yankees would spend the limited money they supposedly have on a DH only player when you have so many other concerns. That's my take, but yeah, I don't know if you feel the same.
No, I do. And I'm going to add this as well. I think we're going to see some extensions between now and opening day. I will say that. I am not able to say specific names yet, but I know some things that are cooking, and I think extensions are something to be watching behind the scenes here.
Well, that's exactly what we need, because this end of the offseason, spring training, roster battle, semi-malaise, injury nonsense, terrible Yankees camp. We need a couple extensions. We need some hope. We need to inject energy before opening day, and I hope we get them. Hey, everyone, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it on the stream today, even if there was some misplaced aggression for whatever reason. Bring your best on Wednesday. We hope to see you on Wednesday. And tomorrow, the Prospect Show, it rolls normal time. So come join us. Set your alarms. Come watch, because we've got Jim Callis from MLB talking to Eric and I on the Prospect Show, and we'll answer a few of your questions as well. But he answered a lot of them. We covered some of the topics that I know everyone in the comments wants to hear about. Jim was great, getting ready for spring breakout in Florida this week. So ahead of that, we've got a primer for you on the Prospect Show. Otherwise, Robert and I will be back here Wednesday afternoon, and then again on Friday. Normal schedule. We can't wait to see you. And that Q&A in the Discord is Thursday. So join us in the Discord as well. If you have not signed up, subscribe on YouTube. If you aren't subscribed, subscribe to the Moonshot. Read fansided.com/baseball-insiders. We got so much content for you. Even if Twitter is down, I'm telling you where to find it. There are so many places. Fansided MLB on TikTok. Fansided MLB on Instagram. Robert and I are there too. Follow us in as many places as we can be followed. Robert, we're not going to stop creating content just because x.com is done.
No, we're full systems go here in terms of creating content, despite X being down for the majority of today. But I'm excited to continue creating content. I will be going to some spring training camps this week, so I'm anxious to be diving into that and sharing what I see and hear while I'm there. But Adam Weinrib, it was good to be here today with you. I know I always enjoy it. And Drew, you are correct. I do not expect Jackson Merle to be extended by opening day. In fact, I'd be like flat out stunned if that ended up happening. So don't get your hopes up there for that. But no, what you can get your hopes up for, however, is us being back here later this week. So I'm excited for that. Adam, again, I appreciate you, good sir. What a good show.
What a good show. Yes, I am okay once and for all. Love being back here. Love hanging out with you and all the commenters and the viewers and the listeners on podcast platforms. Spring training is a good time. Excited to see what you come up with this week, Robert. And next, until next show, I'm Adam Weinrib for Robert Murray. Take care, everybody. We'll see you right back here several more times this week. Turn your notifications on.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody.